So episode number 6 today, and we're going to be making the spicy meatballs. So we're going to be making that with a sort of spicy sort of chutney or a tomato sauce. And we're going to be serving that today with some spaghetti. I'm going to be using linguine. So linguine is the choice that I'm using today. As we always do, I want to go through the ingredients with you just to make sure that you have everything when you're cooking along later on or if you're cooking along now. So for this dish, I would say grab a glass of wine and get ready because I'm going to be having one. It's been quite warm today, so I've got my glass of wine already. So for this dish, I'm using lamb mince. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using tomato. So I've got my fresh tomato. I've used about 500 grams of cherry tomatoes and I've liquidized these, okay? So what I've done is I've liquidized those. There's some curry leaves on the top here, you can see, which we'll be using later on. And then for the actual meatballs, what we're putting in today, we are going to be putting in fresh coriander. So about a quarter bunch of coriander, about 4 stems of mint, so you've got your mint there, half a red pepper. If you're brave, 2 red chillies are going in, half a red onion, which I basically have here. And what I'm going to be doing with this, I'm going to be cheating today. I found this great gadget on Amazon. And I'm sure many of you have this in your house already. I've just realized you can get these things. So it's one of these manual choppers. Just chuck all your stuff in there. And a couple of pulls later, you have really sort of finely diced stuff, right? So really, really useful thing to have in the house. But you can buy it from anywhere. There's so many different brands. They're not paying me, so I'm not going to tell you what brand it is. The one I've got is an article. It was 15 quid, I think. But it's really, really handy and it's made life so much easier. So I've also done the tomatoes in this. And it also comes with a separate blade that you can use for sort of mixing stuff up as well. So really, really handy tool. So just going to grab the mince quickly. Right. So we're using lamb mince today. I've got 500 grams of lamb mince from my local butcher. So what we're going to be doing is going to be putting that into a bowl. We're going to add all our ingredients to that. We're going to be using a bit of salt, a bit of pepper, and I use the mixed ginger garlic, right? So I like using my ginger garlic paste. You can use fresh ginger and garlic. Just make sure you chop it up very, very finely. Now another thing is, you know, some people would like to maybe fry off their onion and their chilies before they put it into the mince. I'm putting it in raw today, but you know, I always say if you suffer with indigestion or heartburn, because I do struggle sometimes, you may want to fry it off. Yeah, but I'm not doing it like I said today. And also there's a thing called hing. So hing is also called asafoetida, and if you do suffer with indigestion and heartburn, then it's worth putting about a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of hing into your actual meatballs, right? So we've got the mince, we've got the tomato, we've got all our stuff, all of the green stuff, the mint, the coriander, our chili, our onion. But I've also separately cut up and sliced up half an onion. So this half an onion and this chili on this side is going to be going to the chutney. So we can put that aside now. First step is take our handy tool. Otherwise use your hands and your chopping board. Get your sharp knives out. And you want to chuck those in. So I'm going to be putting, that's a quarter bunch of my coriander going in with the stems. About 40 mint leaves, and that's about 4 stems of mint. You can add more depending on your preference. You know, if you like lots of mint, then please do that. Some people don't like coriander, then just use more mint if you want to. So, like I said, I'm being brave. I'm adding 2 red chilies that are going in there. So we're putting our 2 chilies in there. And then I'm also going to add my pepper. So I'm putting half a red pepper in there. You can use yellow pepper as well, or green pepper, depending on your preference again. So we're putting all of that together. And then we're adding our onion. So make sure you quarter the onion up. So we've got 4 big pieces of onion there. And that's essentially half an onion. And this is so easy if it works. It has a tendency to break down on me. So literally putting that in there. And all we're going to basically do is pull the string. So I'll bring you down to the bottom so you can see it in action. There. Okay, you just that. Oh. And it looks like we have to revert to the manual bits there with live cooking and me being a bit wild. Okay, got that sorted. Bear with me. Be a bit more gentle. Okay, you want to get this nice and fine, but you want to keep a bit of texture in your meatballs. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now, how amazing this is. And there you have it. That's perfectly done. So instead of you having to finally chop everything up, it's all done for you and all ready to go into your kebabs. Right? So in these meatballs, I'm going to be calling them kebabs, meatballs, they're the same thing. Just made slightly differently the way I'm doing them. They're a bit spicier. Okay, so in our bowl, so grab yourself a large bowl. And I'm going to stick my gloves on because I don't want to handle meat and then sort of, obviously I'm going to wash my hands, but I just want to make sure that the whole process is very quick when we're doing this. So we're going to try and work with gloves on. But when you're at home, make sure your hands are washed and you're using your hands when you're handling the meat. So that's the 500 grams of lamb that's in there. And chili, I want to add okay, so what you want to do is put in a tablespoon of your ginger garlic paste going in there. Okay. And then you want to add about a teaspoon of salt, maybe a bit less depending on what you want. Put a sprinkle in there. And then some black pepper, and again, to your taste, how much of black pepper do you want? I would say about a teaspoon of black pepper if you can. Put that in there, a bit less, again, to your taste. Nice black pepper. And then you want to chuck in all of these lovely chopped up herbs and onions and chili. Okay. You'll find some things did not chop properly, so I'll put that back in there. Right, and make sure you sort of take off all the last bits that are in there. You want to use all of that. Make sure all the flavors. Okay. Now, to bind this, we're going to be using the favorite thing that I miss every week, which is the corn flour. So I'm going to put about a tablespoon of corn flour in here. You don't have to. You can use, some people use breadcrumbs. I'm not putting breadcrumbs. I want lots of meat. I don't want any sort of bread in there. So a tablespoon of corn flour has gone in. And I would say about half an egg. So a half an egg is difficult to get. So I'm going to crack that egg and use half of that egg. The whole yolk, but half the white. Okay. I'm going to mix that through. And you really want to mix this up. And you want to get all of that lovely herbs and chilies mixed into your mince. Make sure the flavor is sort of all going through. Okay. It's very difficult to work with gloves, but it'll make life so much easier for me. Okay, so we're just gonna keep mixing that through. And what you want to start doing is forming little meatballs. Making sure all that's mixed through first. And just taking little pieces and rolling them up to form nice little balls like that. So what you want to do is create little balls like that. And what we're going to do is put those aside. There. Really, really massive thank you to House of Creations for getting my apron done for me. And make sure you form those balls nice and tight so that they don't open up when you... I've also got this new pan. For those of you who like pots and cooking, there's a special at the moment, Pro Cook. I love my Pro Cook cookware, they're amazing. I just bought the stainless steel pan. It's great, it's got sort of measurements inside. It's a stock pot, so you've got your measurements. So there's 2 liters of water in there that's got salt in it, and that's going to be for our pasta. going to put that on actually and let that sort of get to temperature as well on 6. Okay, balls now look like that. That's the meatballs that are going to be going in. They're a bit misshapen, some of them, so apologies. I blame the gloves. So we're putting in a tablespoon of oil in your pan. Roughly a tablespoon there. Great. And what we're going to do is we're going to fry off the meatballs and put them aside. We're not going to fully cook them. We're just going to sort of brown them on the outside. And then what we're going to do is cook the chutney and add them back in halfway through. And that way you get some nice flavor and you keep the meatballs moist inside. The worst thing with meatballs is that they end up become rubbery or hard and they're not very tasty. So we're going to keep those flavors. We're going to make sure that we par cook them and then add them to the sauce before we start cooking our linguine, which will take about 9 minutes to boil in the pan at the back. So I hope you all got your drinks. I'm just going to take a quick sip of my drink while we're waiting for the oil to reach temperature. Okay, you're going to place these in there. Try not to break them. And the reason why you don't put too much egg in this, you don't want your meatballs to become a scrambled egg. You just want it to obviously to use it to sort of give it, so it helps it sort of firm up and hold. But what you'll find, it also gives it a nice sort of color and shine as well. So instead of having bland meatballs, you can now have some hot spicy meatballs. For those who like chili, like I said, the chili is is optional. Just use the pepper instead. You can remove the seeds as well if you don't like too much of heat. Okay, so we're putting those in there. Going to close it up and let that cook in the background. Utensils, Sheila, I buy everything on Amazon at the moment. It's so easy to sort of just order stuff and also very dangerous. So what you're going to buy, look is for silicone implements. So they have them and they're not that expensive. If you go to places like John Lewis, etc., they're really, really expensive. You can buy the same things on Amazon for a fraction of the price. The only thing I would say is they say that they dishwasher safe. I would be very careful putting them into a dishwasher because they are made from wood at the bottom. And when the wood is wet, it does expand, and especially the whisk came out, but when it dried, it went back in again, so it was fine. So just be mindful. If you're buying these things, just be careful with how you're using them. If you want to spend some good money and buy quality stuff, then by all means, look at getting from one of the retailers, one that comes with a guarantee that's a bit longer as well. Okay, so the meatballs are doing nicely. Like I said, we're just going to let it cook for a bit more, and then we're going to start to talk through the chutney. So for the chutney, again, what I'm going to be doing is using tomato. Like I said, for those who just joined us or joined us a bit late, we're going to be using 500 grams. I've used cherry tomatoes. I've liquidized them in the little gadget that I had earlier on. I'm going to be using some curry leaf. You don't have to, but I'm putting some in together with the onion at the beginning and the chili, just so it gives it a bit more flavor, and together with some ginger and garlic as well. Now, we're only going to be using a teaspoon of Kashmiri chili powder, which I'm going to be putting into this at the beginning. And that's just to lift the actual chutney a bit and give it a slight kick of chili as well. And that will give it more flavor. We might add a bit of garam masala, maybe half a teaspoon of garam masala. And I know it's obviously, this is a fusion dish, so it's traditionally an Italian meatball dish, but I'm putting some Indian flavors into it to give it that extra lift. So things like the coriander that's going in, the chili, the garam masala, and the chili powder gives it that extra bit of flavor. Okay, so we're going to quickly go back to the pan. I'm going to take those meatballs out, put them aside, and then we're going to start to make the chutney. Okay, Meta, welcome, and everybody else who's joined us. Okay, let's take you back to that. Great. So you can see that it's not fully cooked, and that's just the way I want it. They just basically now sealed on the outsides. And we're going to cook them later on in the chutney so that they hold their form. Okay, so as you can see, they're not cooked, they're just sealed, and that's exactly how I want them. I don't want them to be overcooked. I'm going to take them out and set them aside. And we're going to finish these off in the actual chutney later on. And that way you don't get rubbery meatballs, they're nice and soft, and they're full of flavor, and they're absorbing some of the flavor from the tomatoes as well later on. Now remember, we said we're cooking it all in the same pan because we want to keep the flavors from the lamb, especially those oils that have come through from the lamb mince as well. Okay, so the meatballs are ready. We set them aside. And now the real work starts. And this is also going to be very, very quick. So we've got the pan with all the leftover bits, the juices from the lamb are in there. I'm going to add probably another tablespoon of oil, and that's olive oil that we're using. Yep. And remember, we're cooking on medium heat at the moment. That's going to go up to about 7 and a bit. It's currently on 6. Okay, just mixing that through. Bringing the oil up to temperature very quickly. Okay, that's sizzling. Now, what's going in here? We're going to be putting in our onion. So remember, we put a half an onion went into the meatballs that was finely chopped. Now we're using the other half, and those have been finely sliced in there. At the same time, you're going to be adding your chili. And you want to add your curry leaf as well. So let's take these curry leaves off. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 curry leaves going in there. You don't have to add curry leaf. I like curry leaf. It's got lovely flavor. And roughly about just a teaspoon of the ginger garlic paste is going in there as well. So I'm going to add some chili flakes as well. So I'm going to put about 2 teaspoons, roughly about 2 teaspoons of my peri-peri spice into the chutney, and that's basically lots of chili flakes and lots of the dried sort of oregano and leaves and things in there. So we're going to put that in. I'm also going to add a teaspoon of my Kashmiri masala. Okay, so that's the Kashmiri masala. We're going to put about a teaspoon. Can you get a teaspoon out there? Yep. So a teaspoon of Kashmiri going in there. That's a teaspoon. Okay, and then we've got some garam masala as well. And I'm going to put about half a teaspoon of garam masala in there. Okay. You want to mix that through. And you want to sweat these onions off. You want to make sure that there's lovely smells and just sort of all the sort of flavors coming through at the moment, and the smells are just amazing. Curry leaves make such a massive difference to any sort of curry or a chutney. It's just really, really amazing. So yeah, you want to sweat off those onions. Mix those through. And you can see that a bit of chili powder is going to help make the tomatoes go a bit red as well. Because sometimes your tomatoes can be a bit green and not quite bright red. Okay, so once your onions are a bit more sort of sweats it off and they're more translucent, you can then add your tomato to that. We're serving the dish today with linguine. You can do a roti, or you can do rice. The choice is yours. Now, very important, you want your onions to cook. You don't want to get heartburn and indigestion. So make sure those onions are nicely sweated off, and so is your ginger and garlic as well. Onions are almost where they need to be. I'm going to make sure. Okay, so now we want to add our tomato that's going in there. And this is the great thing with liquidizing tomatoes, you get a nice consistency and it cooks faster as well. Now, if your tomatoes are sour, you may want to add some sugar to that, like half a teaspoon of sugar, just to sweeten those up slightly. I like sour tomatoes. I tend to add a bit of lemon juice, so I'm going to add some lemon juice to mine. A teaspoon of lemon juice gone in there. To balance that, I'm going to add some sugar. I'm going to add some brown sugar, and I'm going to be adding roughly half a teaspoon of sugar in there. And that's half a teaspoon of brown sugar gone in there. Okay. Now, because we've added the tomato, we're going to turn the heat up to 7, because that was cold, just to bring that back up to temperature again. Have a bit of a taste and just see the balance of that. It's got a very interesting flavour. It's got a bit of acidity, it's got a bit of heat, a bit of sweetness, just right, I think, in terms of balance. Okay, so we're going to close it up and let that cook through for a few minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then we're going to add the meatballs back in towards the end as that's almost cooked. We're halfway through, and let that cook as well. So I'm going to go with that in there. Now I'm going to break that pasta. Don't judge me. Okay, pasta's gone in there. I don't normally supposed to let that sort of boil down, but I'm not. I'm just chucking that in. Just making sure my pasta is not all stuck together in a clump, because that could be disastrous on a live cooking show. Now, I must be honest, I don't normally buy pasta that's dry. I normally buy fresh pasta. So this is going to be an experiment for all of us today. This could go totally wrong. Let's set the timer for 9 minutes and see if we get our perfectly cooked pasta. But bear in mind, this could be totally wrong. In that case, I have a backup plan. I have some rotis in the fridge. And, you know, it's... See that? Look, get in the camera. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back down to 6 again. Remember, we turned it up just because we added the cold tomato. We want to make sure that's cooking through properly. That's looking good. Now, another tip, which I haven't done with these tomatoes, I put the skins in with these. Normally when I cook tomato, I tend to take the skins off with the bigger tomatoes. With the cherry tomatoes, it's quite difficult to take the skins off unless you freeze them, and then when you start to defrost them, the skins come off very, very easily. That's the same for the large tomatoes as well. So top tip around sort of peeling tomatoes is to freeze them, and then the skins just come off them. Okay, at this point, whilst it's cooking, I'm going to add my meatballs back in. Now remember, we part cooked the meatballs, and we want to make sure that they're cooking in there as well with the tomato, just so we gain those lovely flavors back in again. and the meatballs aren't becoming rubbery and hard, which could be disastrous for this cook. Okay. Great, so whoever's eating tonight is going to get lots of meatballs. We can put like gravy in there, those flavors. Okay, and what you want to do is mix that through. So you want those things to be coated in the tomato. Just be very gentle with them because you also don't want to damage the meatballs. You want them to keep their shape. And then what we're going to do is close it up again and just let that cook. Okay, so now you can see the meatballs. They're still holding their shape. I'm going to give that one quick mix through, and then we're going to start the roti on the back as well. So that's our meatballs cooking. It looks amazing at the moment. If you want to have a quick look at that, that's sort of where it is at the moment. That's got another probably 2 or 3 minutes in there to go through. Just be very careful with the meatballs. They are quite delicate. Okay. So I'm going to do one quick taste test on the chutney to make sure that it's cooking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some coriander on top, and this is for garnish. Okay, so that's my coriander here. That's going to go on top. Now I tend to put the stems as well. I like coriander, as you know, those that know me. I love my coriander. Okay. So that's what that looks like, and that's your kebab or your meatballs in a spicy tomato chutney. Really great flavors there. And then the rotis are cooking on the stove. The pasta seems like it's got another 2 minutes to go. There's a nice sauce. Put the meatballs in there. Onion, your tomato, your chili, all of this in there. Okay, now as you can see here, that is the meatballs, fresh, and just going to put some parmesan on top. Okay, so that's what you have, and that is the final dish. So that is your meatballs in a spicy sauce with pasta. Now, for those of you who were wise enough, or probably saw earlier on, I forgot to turn the stove off, which means the roti burnt again. But it would have been a nice roti dish as well. So, because of the lighting, obviously the colours that you're seeing are slightly watered down, so it looks like it's not as bright as in red. But the curry, the actual chutney is quite red. So hopefully if I bring the pot up, you can see sort of the actual colour of it in there. If you're going to try it at home, please let me know what that tastes like. It is really tasty when I've had it. Thank you for joining me again for another episode. But before I leave, I just want to sort of say to you, thank you always for your friendship and your kindness. It's great to have friends like you. Thank you for watching every week and being here with me on this journey. But more importantly, let me know sort of, what you'd like to see me doing. I think it's really important that I keep making things that are sort of appeal to you, right? I'm doing this for all of us, not just for myself. Obviously, I get a great meal after this. I get to eat. Hopefully, you're also having a great meal tonight, whether it's a barbecue and enjoying the lovely weather with friends and family, or whatever you're doing. But most importantly this week, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Until next week, have a lovely weekend and see you all next week. Goodbye and good night.